Real Madrid was leaving them a lot of spaces to get to be exploited. And then in the end, the result was just. It should have been 3-0, 2-0, and it was the easiest game Arsenal's played all season long.
Grell, how about that game in Madrid? You said that Real Madrid had no chance. Arsenal fans will be feeling elated, though, that they didn't really feel too much pressure tonight, did they?
No chance. There was no chance in the game from the start to the finish. They score a goal because Saliba switches off, which, by the way, aside from that mistake, I thought he was fantastic on that night. But a Real Madrid side that didn't create chances, that didn't look dangerous. Vinny probably had the worst game I've seen him play in a very long time. Mbappe, no danger. Rodrigo, no danger. And a team that, when the going got tough, went in super individualistic. Jude tried to do things on his own with crazy passes forward. Valverde tried to steam forward. One play ran into a trap. And Arsenal, truth be told, were comfortable, not just in the first leg, but comfortable in the second leg. And there were moments that if they were not playing Real Madrid, if they were playing just in a regular game, they would have won by more because they respected Real Madrid too much. But Real Madrid was leaving them a lot of spaces to get to be exploited. And then in the end, the result was just. It should have been 3-0, 2-0, and it was the easiest game Arsenal's played all season long.
Wow, easiest game all season long.
How comfortable were they? For 180 minutes, how comfortable were they? 4-4-2, organized in the midfield, strong, powerful, understood where guys were, communicated, switched guys on. They were like, thank you very much, no problem. They played in little triangles when they wanted. They went on the counter. They were set up perfectly to play against Real Madrid.
Did Arsenal show you tonight how much they've grown over the last couple of seasons, Nige?
100%. Like Grella said, I agree with him. Arsenal were perfect tonight. They went and gave an away performance. They showed every single aspect of a football match. Organised off the ball, comfortable on the ball. They had to go there and be brave, and they were. We're going to get onto loads of different things in the game today. You talk about Saka's goal here. And this is a player that missed a penalty early on in the game. And you look at how young he is, but to still have that courage and confidence to go and play and to score and finish like that, it's credit to them. I think for me, this is probably, on both legs, the most two complete performances I have seen from an Arsenal side. They were perfect today. They deserve all the credit and plaudits. Don't like to single out players, but I have to say Declan Rice was sensational today. Saka was sensational, for me, in my opinion. And for me, it was a fantastic performance by them.
Biggest win for Arsenal since when, would you say, Nico?
2009, when they got to the Champions League semi-final shortly after they were playing in a final. This is big for Arsenal. This is big for the credibility of the Arteta project. I was hearing Arsenal fans, maybe at the turn of the new year, this new year, questioning whether Arteta was the right guy to take this club forward into the next season. But this is a huge seal of confidence, of trust in what Arsenal's doing. We learned a lot about Arsenal, and they kept Madrid quiet.
I would say that, look, it's great. They've got the results done. I think everyone's focusing so much more because it is Real Madrid. It's the aura of Real Madrid. They've won this competition the most. But the reality of it is this. They can't win the Premier League titles, you know already. This is the only thing they can play and focus on. They have to go and win it now. Because if they don't go and win it, and if they can't get past Paris Saint-Germain, it was, okay, great, they beat Real Madrid to get there, but they didn't go and win the competition. That is the reality of Arsenal right now, and I'm sure most Arsenal fans, they have to go and win it now. You can't just get to the final and not win this competition with what you've shown.
Does it add more pressure then?
I personally feel it does, because they're not playing for a league title. This is all they're playing for now, and this is all they've got to focus on.
Can I add something?
Go ahead.
Yeah, just to your point. Look how thin the margins are, right? Because Champions League aside, we look at what they do domestically, and Arsenal's a team that maybe didn't regress. I don't know if they got worse, but they didn't get better off of last season. This season for the Prem, not that it was theirs for the taking, but they were one of the favorites, and they burnt out way too quick. Liverpool got out to such a commanding lead on the table that the Premier League race was shortly over by the turn of the new year. It was done when you expected Arsenal to be deep in it. And this is how they show the representation that the project ultimately has taken a step forward. If they finish at the semi-final, I don't know, did we have Arsenal in a Champions League semi-final at the beginning of the season?
I don't think so.
I'm not too sure.
I don't think we had them there, but it's the progression again aspect of it. And again, we said it before, when you look at it now, this is all they have to play for. And to really show that there has been progression under Mikel Arteta, there has to be an expectancy to win it. Because Real Madrid is the one that everyone thinks is that bogey team. It's that special
but I
team.
suppose that's the thing as well. When you think about this Real Madrid, was Arsenal that good or was Real Madrid that bad?
I want to give credit to Arsenal. I felt Arsenal were that good because you have to do it in both legs. They did the job at home. They got the 3-0 win, whether people like it or not. 2 sensational world-class free kick by Declan Rice, and they followed it up because we all had questions to say, right, it's the Bernabeu, it's the history of Real Madrid, it's the competition. How are they going to handle the pressure? They handled every single aspect of the game, and Grella was absolutely drooling about this Arsenal performance.
We've got Golazo.
And when you look at it here, it's just a great performance. And we talk about it. When you go in big games like this and play in big stadiums, you have to be comfortable on the ball. You have to be brave on the ball. They showed that. The atmosphere didn't get the better of them. The occasion didn't get the better of these players.
Especially when they
great
conceded.
maturity. Especially when they conceded.
And Saka missed the penalty.
You look at some of the young players there, Miles Lewis-Skelly. Now he's an England international. He's going to Bernabeu, first experience. Saka again. He knows that he's been seen as Mr. Arsenal. He missed the penalty with a very poor penalty. But to carry on the belief and score that goal, you've got to give credit to Arsenal. At the same time, you can be critical of Real Madrid, where I felt they made it too easy for Arsenal. They didn't challenge them enough in the sense of one-on-one duels, going long and direct. They played it very in front of them, but Arsenal were organised and comfortable. And for me, you can't ask anymore.
One thing that was huge, though, wasn't it, early on, was the penalties. And the 2 penalties, obviously, one that was given for Arsenal, which Saka stepped up and missed. And then, obviously, the one that was chalked off for Real Madrid. For more on this, let's welcome in our rules expert, Christina Uncle. Christina, good to see you. Tell us about these penalties, because a lot of people are saying if you give one, you've got to give the other.
Yeah, and Poppy, you hit that on the head, right? So from a refereeing perspective and what we want to see in the game versus what I call clip isolation, aka taking a clip out and analyzing it for itself, I think we can all collectively agree the second penalty, nobody wants it, right? We don't want that call. The preferred decision is no penalty. And for the considerations is, yes, Declan Rice hooks him, but there is not enough. So we see the ball play, you see Declan Rice hook him, but for the time period from when he hooks him to when he releases Mbappe and Mbappe actually getting to the ball and the amount of that pull, does that yet rise to the level of penalty, especially when we talk about ball being distributed and everyone's jostling? I think the answer here is collectively nobody wants that called as a penalty. That being said, now we rise to the second level, which is when VAR becomes involved. VAR here did recommend this down to overturn the penalty given on the field, which some would say, okay, that's where I prefer. But at the end of the day, does this rise to the level of a clear and obvious error to recommend it down? I'm going to say the answer is no, as it did take 5 minutes for the VAR to make that recommendation because he's probably battling with a very subjective decision. But also importantly, when we talk about, context, and context does matter, the VAR recommended a penalty in the 10th minute for a holding offense, right? So if we want to keep it consistent and for referees and VAR, particularly when we make recommendations to not be part of the controversy, I mean, I know that gives me job security, then we leave the second penalty alone and leave it be because it's in conflict with what the VAR recommended in the first place.
So, Christina, what about the first incident then? So you think that first incident was correct, even though the ball wasn't close to Moreno? That it was literally going to the goalkeeper's arm. So why is this one given as a penalty when we just saw the other incident and the ball for me was in closer proximity to Mbappe than this one?
Exactly, Nigel. And that's why it's creating this inconsistency and this confusion, right? Even Thierry Henry was like, it feels like the secrecy. This play, because we use these words considerations. Referees have to consider different elements to determine whether or not we get to a decision, right? And some of them can be gray and subjective, right? If the player is not going to get to the ball, and that's a consideration that we have when we look at holding offenses, then we have to look to the holding offense itself and say, does that rise to a level that's further, right? So if we're talking about a scale and the extension, I would say this holding offense, clearly there is, it's long in period. It's a full grab. It's a pull. It's a twist. It's a pull around. It's not a football play. We're not jostling for the ball. So because that grab and that hold and the time period of that hold was so much higher than what we would say with the Declan Rice one, right? That then kind of mitigates the circumstance where he's not going to get to the ball. And so that one is okay as a penalty because we say the holding offense in the sense of the time, the period, the material, the significance is so heavy. We need to give this as a penalty. But Nigel, as you mentioned, the second play, yes, there's a hold. Yes, that's clear. We have to determine the significance. But his chances of getting to the ball, right, that's really the gray area. Because of that, let's leave it be, right? Let's not get involved. It's too subjective, and it fits in line with the first decision in the 10th minute.
Well, Christina, so basically, just before I shut up and mind my business, the first one, I feel that Moreno has no chance to get to the ball. I understand
Correct.
it. The second one with Declan Rice, out of all the Arsenal players, when you look at that defensively, he's the only one holding Mbappe, and then you guys deem that, oh, he's not going to get to the ball. We always talk about common sense. Isn't it there an element where you say to the referee, use your common sense, right, you've given the first one, this one again could be justifiable if you give it. Wouldn't that have just been the most common sense thing to do, even though I think they're both very poor penalties to give?
Yeah, and I do adhere, and that's what I mean by the consistency and kind of the understanding of the context, right? If we isolate these clips, you get a different answer if I throw this in front of 100 referees, right? But when we put this in context and football understanding, leave that be, because even though Declan Rice's hold was very quick in time period and not as much as we saw in the first one with Raul, at the end of the day, we really want kind of that consistency, that football understanding. And I'm going to use your word, Nigel, so be happy, common sense in this situation.
I don't know when the rules changed, and maybe they just recently changed, but like in the NFL, a pass call, like you throw a football pass, right? And if it's not a catchable pass and the defender's all over the wide receiver, then they call it that it's not a pass interference because it was not a catchable ball. I've never heard that rule in football, that now we're going to start judging, oh, well, he couldn't get to it, or he could get to it, or on Wednesday he could have got to it, but on Tuesday it was raining, so he couldn't have got to it. So I don't understand what that means. If I'm marking someone in the box and the ball goes on a corner kick and the ball goes to the goalkeeper and I kick him, it's a penalty, right? No, regardless of where the ball is going. If he's in the box and I have him and I go bang as the goalkeeper's catching the ball, it's a penalty. And for me, personally, I think the first one and the second one are two different plays. Right? And I think you hit on that. The first one is an obvious grab. He loses that ground in front of him, so he pulls him down, regardless of what football is. That was a penalty. The second one for me, Mbappe goes down easy, and Declan Rice is not pulling him. He lets him go, like you say. So I don't know. Why does it matter if the goalie's going to catch it, he's not going to catch it? For me, if you kick someone in the box or you pull someone down in the box, it's a penalty.
Yeah, I think, Grella, like laws haven't changed. It's just the law has stayed the same. Now, in application, that's where we get those conversations. And anything that's an upper body kind of a foul as opposed to a kick, which is a little bit more clear. But the upper body, when a ball is being distributed, whether it's from a corner kick, whether it's from a set piece, whether it's from a distribution, there's always going to be, as you know, jostling, and everyone's using their arms. They're pushing, they're pulling, they're grabbing. And that's what makes these decisions subjective. And that's why referees have to look at considerations. And some of the considerations being one of the considerations, not the only consideration, is can that player also meaningfully get to that ball into play? It's not the deciding factor, but it's one of 2 to 3 different considerations we put into play. So not a change of law, just how do we apply those and what rises to the level. And I agree with you, Grella. I think we agree. I think we agree on the same outcomes for both of these clips. So, Poppy, I think our job is done here.
I don't know, Christina. You might think that you both agree, but
Grella's in his own planet.
Grella will take it somewhere else. So we'll leave it at that on a sweet note. Thank you, Christina, so much. We'll see you soon.